now, and let's get started. Um, so um, my first question, Jim, is I guess how you get started. So I know you went to Yale, and you actually studied stage management. So um, if you could share with us your uh, path of how you discovered your calling and in the lighting design.
Yeah, I can go back even further. I'll make it brief. But as Christina said, everybody's path is so different. And I'm always really, one of the things I love is, talking with people about how they got where they got. And my path, although I didn't know it at the time, turns out to be very linear. I'm highly fortunate and continuously grateful that even though in my family there was nobody artistic, my parents did take us to the theater. And so early on, I was seeing things. I think I remember a summer stock production when I was 6 or 7, I believe. I know it was Peter Pan. I do remember that we sat in the balcony. And that's about all I remember. But what I still feel when I think about it is the joy and the fascination and the magic of it. And somehow I was hooked. And I probably didn't know I was hooked then, but through seeing other shows, I grew up in Storrs, Connecticut, which is on the campus of the University of Connecticut. And so they had a very active theater department that produced shows like you all do and we all do. And then a very big touring series of shows that would come into two different theaters on campus. So as a kid, I would see those as well. Not a lot of them, but enough. At the same time, I was involved in a neighborhood puppet troupe. And it was probably horrendous, but we were performing shows, in the garage, and we had neighborhood kids come, and I wasn't into acting at all, but I, having the screen up and hiding behind a screen helped. But also I would do all the other things. I remember typing scripts in the days when we had carbon paper, no Xerox, and carbon paper, and it was a nightmare. And then, getting props, going out into the garden and getting a rock when we needed a rock. And I took the lamp. We had a sort of a 50s pole lamp with 3 different lights on it in our living room, and I brought that downstairs and turned. We could have 3 different light cues. Somehow I found some gel. I don't know how, and so I remember one was red. But then as I got a little older, I worked for our town's matinee series. There was a children's series that brought in, children's shows from New York. And so I would work on the crew for that. I ran lights at the community theater another time, and then was in the high school drama club. And again, wasn't an actor at all, but was doing stuff backstage. And to the extent we had lighting, it was 4 dimmers and, strip lights, basically. And then the masking was sort of gray, fullness drapes, that were 6 inches off the floor. So it was very rudimentary. But I was there and doing it. So that was, the beginning of seeing things and doing at the same time, which I realized was what I continue to do. The high school was next to the theater department of the University of Connecticut. So as I got older, I started dropping in over there and watching rehearsals. And at one point, they let me watch, and it was fine. And then there was a puppet production of The Mikado being done. And I got asked to replace somebody. So I was just sitting there. It was really like 42nd Street. I was watching and they said, we need to replace somebody. Could you do it? And I got permission from my parents and from the school to be away and to do the performances. So that was really getting hooked. Now I was with the college kids and working, I think it ran 3 weeks or something on campus. And then I was invited down to the Goodspeed Opera House in East Haddam, Connecticut. So, and that was amazing I was a junior, I think, in high school, to go to this major theater. And I remember wandering on a dinner break or something, wandering down into the basement and found the original poster for the original production of Man of La Mancha, which had started there. So I was hooked. I applied and was accepted at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. And during my freshman year, taking all the required courses and things, I decided that I really wanted to major in theater. And at that point, UNC's program was not as good as it had been or as it is now. And it was before the Playmakers Rep, and it was sort of in a lull. So I transferred, and knowing UConn, after applying to other places or thinking about other places, I transferred and was accepted at UConn. And I went back in the summer, and I took the summer introductory class in summer school just to make up the credits. And here was the first of a big connection, because the teacher of the class was the scene design teacher and also the puppet teacher, and he was the guy that I had worked for on the Mikado. And he said, why don't you go over to the summer theater, which is an equity professional theater called Nutmeg Summer Playhouse, and help out. And so I went over there and was thrust into full-time practically, working with the lighting designer, who was an advanced senior, Rachel Ballow, and she was lighting all the shows. It was 7 shows, professional actors, full productions, built in the scene shop and rehearsed in rehearsal room, and just all very fast. So it was 1 a week, or I believe. And I was the only dedicated electrician, so I was hanging the lights and focusing and then running the shows, and then being part of that company basically, and we were working, how summer stock full time. So it was amazing. It was the first time I understood what a stage manager did. It was the first time I understood, that equity companies have equity rules and equity deputies, and the experience of all the actors that had come from other places. It was thrilling. And I know later in the questions, there's one, did you ever make mistakes that you that you learned from? And I made my first big one there, which was there was a scene change and there was a blackout. And then I was waiting for the lights to come up, and I decided that it was too long. I got nervous that something had gone wrong and decided that I must need to bring up the lights. So I did. Of course, they weren't ready. And I think it was a near miss. It was covered and it was not a big deal, but I got hollered at by the stage manager, and quite rightly, because I didn't wait for the word go. So very early on, I learned, there are reasons for all these things, and it only works when you follow those reasons. So that was a big one. But the program at UConn was, at the time, it was a BFA program, and the focus was on undergrads more than grads. They had graduate students, but the real program was in the undergraduate, and I was a design major, I guess, sub-major. Really, it was just a BFA in theater, but I took all the design courses and did all the crew work and all the assignments, props, everything. I think I did everything but costumes on different crews. And but the class work and the production work were well balanced, and so that we were learning and doing, and it was I'm sure we complained, but it was good, basically very good. One of the scene designers was Jerry Rojo, who was working a lot in New York at the time with the wonderful theater group, the Worcester Group. And he was a main influence in environmental theater at the time, and actually built and designed and built what was called the Mobius Theater at the University of Connecticut, which was a version of his work in New York at La Mama and for the Worcester Group and Richard Schechner. So we had a sense of New York and a sense of the profession beyond the school, which was incredible. And at the same time, that presentation group that came, the series at UConn at the Jorgensen Auditorium, was bringing in shows. So early on, I was working on dance companies. I worked with on the crew for Merce Cunningham, for Alvin Ailey, and I think an early production of a musical based on Two Gentlemen of Verona, I believe, and the lighting designer was a woman called Jennifer Tipton. And that was the first time I met Jennifer. I mean, in like this, you know, I was just a kid on the crew. But again, we had this influence of shows coming in. And I remember that shows I wasn't working on, that other student productions, I would go and watch because I couldn't get enough of seeing people working and how people worked, and you know, just watching and having, just being very active in and then opinionated, of course, about what went on last night, and you know, how I wouldn't do it that way, etc. But it was just, I was constantly engaged and interested in what was going on, and I liked the theater. So I didn't know yet that I was going to be a lighting designer. I didn't know yet what, but I was just couldn't get enough of it. And at that time, then along came stage management. There was a new department head when I was a junior or senior. So I started working as a stage manager as well. There was a production at Goodspeed that this same lighting designer who I'd worked with in the summer was going to do in a winter stock production, Rachel. And it was Peter Pan, surprisingly enough. So now we're combining Goodspeed and Peter Pan. And I was the electrician for that and ran the board. And again, it was a great experience to be working with a group of professionals. Then as the summers, every summer I was back at Nutmeg. First year, I think sophomore year was the electrician and board op, and then in my junior year was a stage manager, a production stage manager, and then in my third year was the lighting designer. And you know, incredible. You know, nowadays there aren't so many summer stock theaters that hire designers, you know, young designers, and there aren't as many opportunities. But that was just an incredible opportunity. And at UConn, where 3 of my teachers had gone to the drama school, and so they recommended that I apply there, and I did. And another big moment when I had an interview there and said I wanted to do both lighting and stage management. The lighting design program is in the design program, and its curriculum is very strict, and it's you don't have time to do anything else. But the stage management program at that time was in the tech department, and we could there was room for electives. So I got very good advice from the associate dean at the time, Howard Stein. And, you know, it's these little moments when you get like somebody just saying that to me, you know, like, okay, you want to do both, here's how you can do it. You know, that's huge. And it was just like Frank Ballard saying to me, why don't you wander over to the theater and see if you can help out? You know, all those little kind of things turned out to be huge, huge opportunities. So I went to Yale. I majored in stage management and did lighting at the same time. At the time, Bill Warfel was the lighting teacher, and Frank Torok was the wonderful PSM of the drama school and also the Yale rep. The school has a professional company with it. And we got to work at the Yale Rep as well. So I was an assistant lighting designer. I was a lighting designer on one show. And then I was an assistant stage manager, et cetera. And then finally for my thesis, I was a production stage manager for a production of Midsummer Night's Dream. And this was a huge production. And it was the last production of my last year. And it was directed by Alvin Epstein and designed by Tony Stragus and Zach Brown. And the lighting went through a couple of lighting designers actually, but it turned out that Bill Warfel ended up lighting it after, sadly, a student got overwhelmed and couldn't do it. And the hard decision had to be made. So we went through all this. It also involved the Yale School of Music, a full orchestra and a full chorus. And it combined the music of Mendelssohn's Midsummer Night's Dream with the text of Shakespeare. It was great. And then here's another key moment of good luck. The second stage manager full-time at the Yale Rep was leaving at the end of that season, Carol Wasser, to go work at Equity, where she still works, I believe, in the office in New York. And I was doing the last show of the season, and it was going to be the first show of the fall. And talk about being in the right place at the right time. They asked me if I would become the resident stage manager at Yale. Incredible. I said yes, and I was there for 3 seasons. And so I was in the rehearsal room with actors and directors daily for 3 years. And we were in rotating rep then, so that we'd rehearse something in the afternoon in the rehearsal room, and then at night after dinner go back and call a show for the current show that's running. And there'd be 2 or 3 running, so Frank would do some and I'd do some. But I was in rehearsal most every day. And that's all important, because just being in the room and watching how actors work and directors work is sort of irreplaceable for what I do now. Doing it over and over and learning, and I remember saying, I'm also learning to be bored, because some rehearsals were boring. You know, it was for them, but I have to sit there. But so, and that's not a bad thing to learn. There are ways to deal with it. And first of all, you don't show it that you're bored, you don't fall asleep, etc. But it's part of the process. And so I really learned the day-to-day operations of a company, which Yale Rep was. So 3 seasons after doing that, I said, okay, that's enough. I think I should move to New York and try New York. And I don't even remember how clear I was, but an opportunity came up to be the stage manager for the Twyla Tharp Dance Company. And Twyla is a major choreographer from the 70s and 80s, still going strong and is about to do something coming up. But she had a company then, and she had just choreographed the movie of Hair. And so the small modern dance company was now, she was used to having big staff and a lot of help. And so she wanted a full-time stage manager. Until that time, she was only getting hiring a stage manager for the tours. And so it was a very part-time thing. So she'd be in rehearsal by herself, you know, trying to run the records or the tapes and things. And that was very frustrating for her, and therefore frustrating for the dancers. So she was looking for somebody to help out there and reduce that tension. And I was looking for a full-time job. I had a full-time job at Yale, and I wanted a full-time job in New York. So it worked out great for me. And my job was to work with her as a stage manager in rehearsal, and then also recreate the lighting on tour. And the lighting designer was Jennifer Tipton. She had been doing Twyla's designs since the beginning, since they had worked together as dancer and stage manager at the Paul Taylor Dance Company. So suddenly I was working for Jennifer as well as for Twyla. And that was an incredible 2 years. And I remember telling Jennifer later that it was like, you know, ballet dancers do a bar every day. Well, my job was like doing a bar, because it was practice, practice, practice. And you don't get better at lighting by not doing it. And being on tour, I had every decision to make except the initial design decision, in terms of how to make it look the same at every different theater and every different circumstance. The inventories were different, the angles were different, you know, the time was different. So it was just incredible 2 years of you know, twice a week probably, because we were touring a lot. So we'd do, you know, half a week in one town and then half a week in another. So you got a chance to, you know, if it looked bad in Iowa City, you could make it look better in Des Moines. And it was irreplaceable experience. So 2 years after that, 2 years of doing that, that was full time. I said, okay, it's now or never. And I had I don't think I thought about it too much. I said, I just want to be a lighting designer full time. So I resigned from the Tharp Company in July of 1980. And then in, I guess, right around that time, I met Peter Sellers. Oh, I know what it was. We were touring in Boston with the Tharp Company in May of '80, actually. And Peter was working at Harvard at the American Repertory Theater, which had been the group that had been at Yale. So Bob Brustein moved the theater up to Harvard. I called it the American Repertory Theater. Peter was a student at Harvard and was directing a production. And I had friends who were the designers. Adrian Lobel and Dunya Rimakova were the set and costume designer. Paul Gallo was the lighting designer. So I went to visit them on our day off and met Peter. So that was in May. In July, I got a call from another colleague saying, you know, Peter, we're hiring this kid, Peter Sellers, to do a show at La Mama in New York, and we need a lighting designer. I said, oh, I think I met him in New York, in Boston. Okay, so I got the job. And then I remember I got really very busy, and I thought, I can't do this properly. It's my first, I can't mess this up. I don't have enough time. And I went to meet him to turn it down. And I remember that Peter did what I now call the Peter thing, because he can be very inspirational. And I left the meeting thinking, not only could I do that show, but any show ever that I wanted to do, and anything else I ever wanted to do in my entire life. I mean, it was like going to Lourdes. I felt healed. And I did the show, and it worked out. And you know, our next show hopefully will be in May in Paris. And this is our 40th year of collaborating. And I'm hoping that we get to do it. So, you know, another moment in, you know, I could have lost that connection if he hadn't said, no, he didn't know me from Adam. And so how lucky was that to get saved, as it were, and then to have it develop into this major collaboration. It's the center of all the work I do. It's really, Peter comes first. And, you know, it's been amazing, the amount of work he's done, and the fact that neither of us have pissed each other off enough yet to be fired or quit is great. He's very loyal. And so that's it. That's the answer to your question.
Okay, great. And I think the key points that I just sort of learned from what you just shared with us is you listened. There are people throughout your lives from young age, hey, why don't you go and do this? Or hey, you come over here and do this. But you took those advices, and I think that's important, I think, for the young designers and students.
You know, I think it was my grandmother who said, luck is when opportunity meets desire. And I guess I heard that as a young enough age to really believe it and think about it and do it. And so I had the desire. And so when I recognized that this might be an opportunity, you know, I did it. I mean, it's amazing to me that, you know, all that happened. But, you know, it is true. If the hardest part is getting the door open the
Right.
first time to get that opportunity. And that's not, you can't do that for yourself. Somebody has to do that, or some circumstance has to happen then. But then once that door is open and you walk through it, then it's your job to keep it open. And you know, that's part of the responsibility of being a designer and a professional.
And so I like to thank you, Jim. Move on to design section, and you have, I mean, just amazing resume and a career as a lighting designer through many years. And if you could share with us your design process, you know, and where you get your inspirations from.
Yeah. This is maybe a little trickier because I think, you know, I'm still learning what I do. And I don't think it ends, you know.
No, no, especially lighting, I think.
Yeah, but I do think, you know, I think in the past 4 or 5 years, I've been able to express it a little better than ever before. And I'm not a sculptor or watercolorist, but I would say that I work like them. And what I mean by that is like a sculptor, because I attack the problem from the outside, the big picture, and then a series of refinements to define it. And what does that mean? That means that I try only to know only what I can know or what's possible to know at the stage of development of the design. So what do I know first? Let's say it's a play. I know the script. So then I have my time with the script to read the script, analyze for myself what it's about, and really just to read it and know, not as a lighting designer necessarily, but I try and have the time to read it as just as here's a piece of work and we're going to work on it and what are my reactions to it. Then try and have some design thoughts. And then if the process is going typically, the next step is a meeting with the team and the director. And those meetings, if they can be from scratch, like nobody has anything made, that's the best. But, you know, very often the director and the set designer will have, you know, gone ahead and there'll be a set sometimes. So, but it's more fun and more active if we have a meeting where we can just talk about the play. Maybe somebody shows some research. The director might say what the, you know, why we're doing this and how we might want to do it. So that's the first step. And then we go, then I get the set eventually, the set's developed and I get the plans. And at that point, I'm probably matching a list of what I need with the physical space. And the list of what I need came from my own thoughts and what the notion of the production from the director and our conversations have been. But again, I don't know specifics, like I don't know where the actors are going to stand. And I don't know if there's a chair in the set, I don't know that the chair is going to be where the designer drew it. Because the first thing, you know, the first thing that's going to happen is we're going to get to the theater, the director's going to move it over 2 feet. And that's all, and that's to be expected. So rather than, I have a colleague who says, no, I have to know where the chair is, because how can I light the chair if I don't know where the chair is? And I take the other tack, which is if I work at it from the outside in, then I'm going to refine it slowly, and I'm going to set up stuff, set up a plot that will be able to deal with those kind of changes. So, and it doesn't mean that I don't have any ideas in the plot or that I'm lazy about that, but I allow for that. So that's the sort of the sculptor part. And then I would say that the watercolorist part is that I try and work in layers so that every step of the process, I try and go from the beginning to the end. So for instance, in doing the plot, I try and do, I can try and do a rough as fast, not for speed's sake, but so that I don't bog down. So when I'm doing a rough, I have a system worked out, usually with an assistant in the room, to get to a rough based on a pad rather than drafting. And then the next step would be to draft it. And again, my goal is not to stop and like, oh, I don't know what to do, you know. So I try and keep going in the process of developing the plot. If there's a question that comes up, it goes on a question list. and then we keep going. And then when we take a break, I call the designer and saying, here are the 5 questions that have come up in the last 2 hours, and I get answers, and then we go back and fix that. And then the same way, when I get to the theater and focus, I don't want to bog down. I trust that all my preparation will be good, and that I assume that the install will have gone well, the load in, and we just start, and I'm not sloppy about it, but I don't bog down. If, for instance, a light comes on and I realize, oh, this may not work, I don't stop. I just focus it and move on and take a note. Again, I'm trying to get to the end, and that's the way I cue it too. First draft. So that, because then there's always time to go back and clean up. And if I don't get to the end, if I don't start, I'll never get to the end. And if I stop too soon, I won't get to the end. So I'd rather do a first draft and get through. Now, of course, that's gotten easier with experience. I don't think I could do that when I was first starting, but I find that it works much better for me than sort of stopping and belaboring something before I really know what it is. And so it's this mixture of specificity and allowance for something else to happen in the theater. When something happens that I'm not expecting, one of my favorite things is what I call great moments in tech, where suddenly an actor comes out and moves the couch in a certain way, and the music cue happens, and then I go, oh my God, that's perfect, we can do this cue. So those moments, those little surprises that happen, and that's, again, being open to it and ready for it. And that part of the reason I can be that is that I'm prepared. I have what I'm planning to do, but I'm also secure in the fact that that I can allow something else to happen at the same time. And part of that, I must say, is the experience from stage management. Again, being in the room and with actors, directors, being in techs and running techs for 5 years, I'm comfortable with that, and I'm able to keep I wear my headset on my right ear so that I can keep my left ear open to the room, so I can hear a designer say, what about that wall, or the director say, we're going to change this, or Jim, what about that? So, all to say that I try not to stop and bog down. I try not to hold the actors. I like them to go, because, again, until I know what I'm going to do, I don't want to stop. I'd rather sort of sketch it in and see it and then go back and fix it. So it's more efficient in a way for me. And I learned that, I must say, one of the things I left out was, while I was at Yale, Tom Skelton came to the drama school to teach and also to light shows at the Rep, and I stage managed 4 shows for him. Well, and that was, talk about a master class. Tom Skelton was one of the greats, and sadly no longer with us. But just, he had a facility for lighting and for doing his job that was just incredible. Like, he just spoke it, and like, he would light a first draft in a run through. Like, the director said, oh, we're just going to do a run through on the stage, our first time on the stage. He said, okay, I'll light it. And then we would all be like gobsmacked, because this lighting would be beautiful. And then he'd get to the end and go, yeah, I think I got off on the wrong foot. I'm going to redo it tomorrow. I was like, what? But just that facility it was just, it just oozed from him. It's just, the experience level was just a master at work. And that was thrilling to watch and help. There was one time when when he watches run-throughs, he would chart it out on a legal pad. He did everything on legal pads. And I've stolen that idea from him. And there was one day that he saw Act 2, say, in the rehearsal room, his chart, and he came to the theater the next morning. He said, oh my God, I don't know where my Act 2 notes are. So I said, okay, well, let's talk through it. So I talked him through the whole act, and I described the whole act, and he charted it out. And so I could just watch him do that, and it was amazing, because what the process was for him was getting it in his head. The notes were almost superficial. Just the fact that he did it and spent the time doing that, it was now in his head, and he could work faster and freer. So again, another fortunate and overwhelmingly great opportunity to work with Tom. And not surprisingly, Jennifer Tipton was in a way a student or mentee of Tom's, because Tom was the lighting designer at Paul Taylor and Joffrey Ballet when Jennifer was stage manager and then assistant. So I feel like I've had sort of a 3 levels of training from these amazing people. Okay, I got off the track a little bit. We're back on design process. So those are the layers. But also what I'm trying to do also is figure out what the work needs. What are the needs of this play? Do we need to go from day to night? Do we need to go from warm to cool? Do we need to go from big to little or little to big? How best to support the story? What is the emotional arc? Because I think the thing that lighting does best, and which probably isn't in the textbook descriptions, is support the emotional arc. And what do I mean by that? I mean, like, a simple example would be if 2 people are fighting, that the lighting might increase in brightness, or it might increase in edge, more side light, say, or more backlight. Or if there's a beautiful melody, the lighting might cool down and pull down. So just the responsiveness to the script, and if everything's lining up, that's going to be appropriate because you're all trying to work toward the same goal. So, so how best to support the story is a big one for me. Dynamics and support without burying. It's not. I don't want to make. Hopefully, as Craig Miller, another wonderful colleague, used to say, the lighting should be seen and not heard. And what he meant like that is like, it should be appropriate and integrated and not about itself. The worst thing is when you see a production and it looks like 5 productions. The goal for me is to always make it 1 production, that everything is working together, that everything is in support of the text and the vision of the director. And that brings us to, if I can jump a little bit, the director, because for me, the director is important because the director is the person that can funnel all this creative energy of the actors, of the designers, together to make one vision. And hopefully in the best collaborations, it's our vision. It's not a power struggle. It is, we've signed on to work on this thing, and we want it to be the best it can be, and we want it to be one thing and not confusing. So, so I like the notion of the director as a benign dictator, and meaning that at a certain point, I bring to the table my game, and everybody else does too. And my game includes, options. I think it should be red, but maybe you think it should be blue. And so, and maybe the set designer thinks it should be orange. So we have a discussion about that in the best of collaborations. And at a certain moment, I have to defer to the director, and I'm happy to do that because I'm a collaborative artist, or I would say craftsman, and I don't do that negatively. I think of what we do as a craft, and happily, but it is in service to something else, and so I'm happy to work for the greater good, as it were. Now, I know different people will have different opinions about that, but that's important to me, and why I do it. Because for me, basically, you know what it is? I have a skill that gets me in the room with a lot of really, really talented and terrific people. And when push comes to shove, that's what I'm really deeply interested in, is the engagement and the amazing people that I get to work with. And my skill, of course, is why I'm there. But the bonus for me is the show itself and the process. In terms of color, I have two well, thoughts. I won't say rules. And one is that less is enough. And the second is earn the right to use it. And what do I mean by those? Less is enough. Well, for me, lighting is not about the gel book. And I find that it is for a lot of people. And for me, it's about the ideas of the show. And so I find that, usually you don't need as much as you think you do. This is my worldview is, and I guess I get it from Jennifer, my work with her work on Twyla, because she's a minimalist. But the color is ideas. Red is an idea, and it's a huge idea. Lavender is an idea. They're all ideas, and ideas are to be dealt with carefully. So earn the right to use it. It has to be about something. It's not a casual exercise of like, oh, that's a pretty color, let's put that in there. It has to be for a reason, and I have to be able to justify it. So, and for me, also in my process, I start with angle. Where it's coming from is what I do first. Where it's coming from and why. And then what color would it be? And so in developing a plot, the last thing I do is pick the color. If I'm going to have some blue, I don't have 6 blues. I would have 1 and maybe 2. It's just less is enough. I see a lot of plays that take place in kitchens, and suddenly the kitchen is orange and green. And I go, well, my kitchen isn't orange and green, so I don't get it. So it's that kind of thing. And I find that if I get too complicated, it's just like any idea. If it gets too complicated in cueing, it's too complicated. And if I find myself in a bind and something's not working, it's usually because I've overcomplicated it. So I guess part of my process is to keep my eye on clarity and keep my idea on intention, and not get distracted. And it's very easy to get distracted. What we do is hard. And so being careful and being prepared, one, and then being able to be open to what else is going on and other people's reactions, because of course we're creating our work, in public. I always say, like the set designer doesn't have, 40 people over to her or his house to make the model being made and comment, but in a tech, we're out there alone. So I just want to read a quote about clarity from our wonderful composer, Stephen Sondheim. In his wonderful book, Finishing the Hat, which is his 2-volume book of his lyrics and comments about his lyrics. In the preface, he says, I have these rules. I have not always been skilled or diligent enough to follow them as faithfully as I would like, but they underlie everything I've ever written, in no particular order, and to be written in stone. 1, content dictates form. 2, less is more. 3, God is in the details, all in service of clarity, without which nothing else matters. And I just think that's fantastic and applicable to all of us in the business. The over Baroque acting style, less is enough. Mark Morris will always yell to his dancers, he said, "Stop dancing." And that means it's too much. Just do it. I don't have to pick up the cup. I have to pick up the cup. So and light, and it's the same thing in lighting. I don't have to light the scene, it just has to exist. So clarity, I try and keep my mind on that. Okay, I think I'm done on that for now.
Okay. Looks like
The name of the book, Finishing the Hat.
Stephen Sondheim. Yeah.
It's
And
2 volumes.
and looks like Ian has a question. Ian, you wanna ask a question?
Hi, Ian.
Hi, Jim. So my question was, as far as like you were kind of talking about it, but what kind of like lighting techniques do you find yourself using the most? Or maybe effects might be the best way of saying it.
Effects, only the ones that are needed. But define effects.
Well, I was thinking in terms of which aspect you probably like focus on the most and mess around with, whether it's do you find yourself doing stuff with brightness more often than color or things like that. I know you said that color was kind of like the last thing.
It's the last thing I pick when I'm making a light plot. It doesn't mean it's the last thing I've thought about, because I might, if, for instance, for me, if I were doing if I were doing, say, I lost the play, but I might define a play in the process as a lavender play, or I might say, this is about memory. I'm thinking of Glass Menagerie. William says, this is a memory play. Tom says that in the first line. And for me, somehow, I don't know why, but lavender works for me as the color I assign to memory. So while I'm preparing the plot for Glass Menagerie, I'm thinking it's going to be purple or have lavender as a main color. I don't know which ones and what, but then I'll figure that out at the end once I know what angles and functions of lights I've assembled. Does that help?
Yeah, a little bit. It was kind of a hard question to ask.
Right. But I think the point is I try and not like come to it like I'm lighting this show, so I need some effects. I'd rather say, what does this show need? Like maybe it needs a rainstorm, and maybe it needs haze, but maybe it doesn't. I think there's also a tendency in design, and I, without getting into too much trouble, sometimes I see this in the commercial theater, that, there's a sort of sense that you need the kit, like, oh, well, you got to have projections, and you got to have smoke and mirrors, and you got to have lights coming up through the floor. You know what I mean? It's sort of backwards to me. It's like, I guess if that's what you're doing, sure. But I'm trying to work at it the other way. Like Glass Menagerie needs, quiet, or it might need, just angle. And it might need light glancing the fire escapes, and time, a subtle time of day shift, and then the ability to contract into the soliloquy. But but it's not about flashing lights or color, a lot of color, or, but then there might be a musical that needs all that. Does that help?
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Okay. So I think the big note is for me is that it's always coming from what the work that I'm hired to do, and then my analysis, and then the group's analysis of what that work is, and therefore how to tell that story. Yeah, rather than I have all this kit that I'm bringing in. Yeah, which means that if it's appropriate to have a very electric look for something, then I'll want to have, like HMI or moving equipment or Max or whatever. But I don't, if I don't, I mean, I can do shows that don't have 50 Max. But some designers would say they can't. But that's my thought.
Right. It is a tool at the end of the day, whether if it's Source 4 or Mac or what have you. It's a tool that you have to use it to express your creativity, and you have to know the tools, and you have to selectively use it.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, my rule is just because it exists, you don't have to use it. On the other hand, it's nice to know that it exists so that when you do need it, you know. And I'm not a, I'm, you know, I don't do a lot of commercial work, so I don't have a lot of facility with movers and things. Some of the European opera I work, the European opera houses have more intelligent equipment, and that's been useful, and I've gotten to know it that way. But when I need to use those things, I call on my colleagues and, you know, ask, like, you know, what would you use in this situation? Or, you know, so I do my research as at the point of needing it. But I would say to you all, learn it all now, you know, and you know, broaden your base, because not only will it be good as a designer, but then, you know, for instance, programming is an incredible job, and a lot of people are needed to do that. And if you're a good programmer, my God, you're going to make way, you're going to be busier and make more money than I ever will. I mean, the commercial rates are, it's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
It's like 1,500, 2,000 a day.
Yeah, I remember when I assisted George Fisher and Peggy Eisenhower, was off Broadway, supposed to go on Broadway. And Peggy, one night, she just got frustrated with the programmer, and she threw her headset down on the floor. And that's why I don't work with a $750 a day programmer. And I go, a what? You know, because I was only making what, $800 a week as I assistant. And what, this person up there in the booth making $750 a day? And then later I found out that Broadway designers, they make $1,500 to $2,000 a day.
Programmers.
Programmers.
Absolutely.
I'm like,
and a good one is worth it, but you know, there are a lot of, there aren't such good ones too. Right. Anyway, just to the point of you know, technology well used is technology well used. Okay, what's next?
Well, it's amazing how time flies. It's already 60 minutes in, and so I also want to save some, you know, time if any of the students have questions.
I'm also happy to keep going for a while too. I don't have to rush.
Okay, that's great. So, Jim, what young designers need to look for as they go into a professional world?
Well, my flip answer would be someone to give you a job. They're under rocks, I think. but something that I find that's important is to remember that it's not school. And what I mean is that it's a profession now, and you'll be expected to do your work. And there's no late homework. And there's a team of people that are waiting for you, you know. Just like in football, if the quarterback fumbles and if the tight end, you know, drops the pass, you know, we don't win. And the whole thing, when it's working well, is working because everybody's doing their thing. It's organized. It's a beautiful structural thing. And so, you know, I think knowing that is important. And, you know, there aren't excuses, or there are, but then you don't get the next job either. So, you know, I think that's really the most important thing to stress, is that it is different than school. For me, and now I'll get in trouble with the professor, but I was happy to be out of school and working. But I run, I see this happen a lot of times when young, uh, professionals are starting out, to forget that. So that would be my big advice.
Okay.
And then I'm not even, is there another way you can ask that question to help?
I guess what kind of things, and here's another question that I kind of wanted to ask, and maybe that also help. What kind of thing or important things that you learned when you were in training that maybe you can share, like when you were um, starting out assisting,
Yeah. Uh,
and and things that maybe you still sort of hold in your heart when you're working professionally.
yeah. Where did I put that? I had some notes about that. And
The in training thing was the very top, towards the top.
okay. Sorry, everyone.
Okay.
Oh, the most important thing, right. Well, at the Tharp company, I had some very good advice. Another moment, it was my first day on the job, and at the Tharp Studios on Franklin Street at the time, there was an outer room and then an inner room, which was the studio. There was a doorway there. And I got there, I was a little nervous, and one of the dancers, Shelley Washington, said, "Jim, welcome. I have some advice for you. Whatever's going on in your life, when you open that door and walk through to Twyla's rehearsal room, forget it all and just be there in the room." And that was an incredible, lesson in the purpose. In a professional situation, we're not there to talk about our bad day or to say, shouldn't be this way or something. We're there to function, and we're hired to do our job. So that was incredible. And then in school, I was asked to light a sort of a main stage show as an undergrad, and that at the time was unusual. And I remember being really nervous about it, but my advisor told me something really important. He said, "You've been given this design assignment, and so you are no longer a student. You're an equally valued member of the team, and it doesn't matter that the other designers are faculty, and you are there equally." And just knowing that was helpful, because then I could act that way, and I knew I would be accepted. And the designers, they didn't want me to be a student; they wanted me to be a designer. And I think that's great in all of the relationships. We are equally valued members of the team, and if we start from that trust, it works better. And then I always find that for me, I start from trust, and then if it goes badly, it's, if somebody else isn't behaving that way, then, I'd rather work that way than start from distrust and have them prove trust. Also that professional behavior and the collaborative nature of the theater means it's about the production and how to help the group, not about me. And that the lighting design serves the production and isn't a thing of its own, which we've already talked about.
Okay. And one of the advices that I still remember I received from Jim, and some of you are ready to graduate, this fall and the coming spring, working in a professional, is that as a freelance, being a freelance designer or stagehand is a tough job, and just always searching for work. And Jim one time told me that when you're the most busiest, you need to make that one phone call. You need to keep that momentum going.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And certainly when you don't have a job, your job is to get a job.
Right.
So, 8 hours a day, you're like sending out letters, and, and it's really nothing ventured, nothing gained. Nobody's going to know you unless you announce yourself. I don't mean to be obnoxious about it, but just here I am. And, in any way you can that, and some, I'm always happy to receive letters from people, and I try and get back to them. It usually takes a long time, but I'm always happy to meet and talk with people, if I'm looking for an assistant to work in the studio or something, there's always that possibility. It often might take, a year or something after we talk, but it's, if I know you're around, and you'll find that many designers do that. Some don't, but many do. I think we're a business that really appreciates the next generation. Can I talk a little bit about research?
Oh, sure. Yes.
I find that that research, if it works for you, is fantastic, and I guess that says that I don't always do research, but on the other hand, I do believe that anything that allows you to get into the piece or to understand the work is useful. If you do light sketches, if you do, collages, mood boards, photographs. The danger I find is that that when people say bring in research, I find sometimes the research is just a bunch of pictures and it's all over the place, and it isn't helpful. So I would just urge you to be very, very specific about the research, not just tear a lot of pictures out of a magazine. Because it can get everyone off the track. When I'm working with a new director, and the director says, "Oh, it's hard. I don't know how to talk about lighting." I'll always say, "Don't worry, you've hired a healthcare professional. Let's talk about the play." So, because I find when directors talk about lighting, it can be very difficult. I mean, if it gets too specific, because if he can say, he or she can say, "I need this to be blue." Well, what is blue? Like, your blue is not my blue. And, so if it gets too specific too early, I find that it can get complicated and maybe less successful. But of course, that's tricky because you want all the information you can get. So I'm not saying don't have any information, but just be careful about the information you have, and and make sure it's going to be useful as opposed to just stuff. Does that make sense?
Right.
It's the danger of the word concept, because I think I find it's too often a concept is told to me and it's not a usable concept. It's like, it's like a rotten apple. Well, I don't know how to use the rotten apple, but a concept might be, it goes from hot to cold, or it goes from goes from big to little, or it's geometric, meaning like there's a lot of the look is squares or something. A little more direct, and the simpler the better, because if it gets overcomplicated, it's just like an exercise in words and not something that's lightable or usable. I read an interview with a film director whose name I will forget, but he said, for him, if he has one phrase that he can use, if it's a good phrase, then he can answer everybody's questions. Like, should the uniform be green, and should the time of day be this? And if he has the right phrase, it's usable, and it's usable for him. So be careful of overcomplicating and falling in love with verbiage that isn't practical to use. The other thing I would say is that in the case of our digital world, in terms of 3D rendering and these producing of these highly finished set designs and models, I get nervous about that because suddenly the director's falling in love with that beautiful patina on that wall or something, which is beautifully rendered, but it's going to be hard for us to do. So I'm always saying to my set design colleagues, please don't finish it. Please keep it. I mean, we can talk about what we want to add, but don't put in little things that are just there. If you were doing a presentation to a company or something, okay, but if it's for a show. So I just feel like sometimes overcomplicating it just brings problems later on and gets it really off the point.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I think directors a lot of the times have a difficult time communicating lighting, and they see certain things, they get fixated, and they expect that on stage, and a lot of times we can't deliver it.
Yeah, and that's why I try and be. My attitude is that I'm there to help. It's not an adversarial relationship. I'm part of the team, and I'm here to help the director,
Mhm.
and that means I have contact with the director through the rehearsal process. I might, if I'm in the same town, I might drop into rehearsal. I might call up on the phone and say, how's it going? And I find many directors really appreciate having, somebody to talk to, basically, because they're basically all alone in the room, and if they're interested, they're very appreciative of that contact.
Mhm.
And that all is helpful to when you show up for the tech, that that you've had conversations, and it may not be about the lighting, but they know you understand the play, or they know you understand what they're trying to do, or the issue that she's having with that actor, or just whatever. And so there's less we they when you finally get there. There's more like, and if I present myself as the person who's really going to take charge and do the lighting, and is at the same time is open to suggestions and thoughts, then it's better. I mean, I don't wait to, I don't think directors really want to have to say, okay, what's Q1? I want to avoid that. And I don't want to say to them, okay, what do you want? I come with my game. My job is to light the show, but also to be open to letting it, if there's something that they don't like, to be able to change it. So I'm lighting the show, but I'm also working on the play. It's really two jobs. And by that, I mean that, yes, it's my skill to light the show, but it's also like to be able to say, you know what, in that transition, when that couch comes out and then the door opens, what if the couch came through the door, or whatever, and have an active part in the development of the show. And most directors I work with kind of not only like that, expect it from us as designers, but also they want it. And in that way, we're sort of our own dramaturgs. They also want us to say, as eyes, as more objective eyes, like, I heard what you said you wanted to do, but I'm not seeing it. And many directors I work with want that input. And so that's why I say that's the second part of the job, is to work on the show itself. Some directors don't want it. I worked with a wonderful director in Chicago, again, no longer with us, Michael Maggio, and he just wanted me to light the show. And it was great, and that was great, no problem. But no suggestions, please.
Now, some of my students heard me telling them this, and this another great advice I got from Jim is light the moment. Speaking in terms of tech and sitting in the room, building cues, I just want them to hear from you, Jim, what that means by light the moment.
Well, two things, I guess. I don't work, I try not to have a dry tech before I have the actors on stage. And that so that I don't get, again, I don't get bogged down in what it could be and sidetracked like, oh, the work lights look great, or, you know, those horrifying texts where dry text ahead of time, where it's just the lighting and the director. And so what I try and do is focus, and most theaters, the schedule allows this. You focus the lights, and then the next day the cast is on stage, and I'll try and light over that rehearsal. And even though it's, and I'm hoping it's not an official tech, because then it's called, you know, some theaters call it a move-in rehearsal or spacing rehearsal, so that I can get a lot of work done, you know, and my first draft in by the time that as they're going through their move-in rehearsal, and it's usually start and stop, and that's great for me, and you know, that way I don't have to stop. I'm just like in the background, and so by the end of that night, we have whatever they've rehearsed put in. That leaves me free to revise it the next day as we go into the official tech, but also to see, to have less pressure on me to create something while everybody's waiting. I've done it already. I've taken the itch out of it in a way. And so that I can be more available to see something happen. I guess, you know, so that, like I said earlier, if I see something happen that I haven't planned for, I'm open to it. And you know, I hear the sound cue for the first time, and then it's like, oh my God, then we have to do this, you know? So it's being available and not being overwhelmed, I guess, to be able to see what's going on in the moment. Lighting is in the moment. It's like action painting. You know, it's like Pollock throwing the paint at the canvas. And in modern dance, that it's the most action painting, because you usually have about an hour to get ready for a rehearsal. Then you have a run through for a 20-minute dance that you light, and then you may have one more rehearsal, and that's it. So that's really fast. Theater has the longest time because of the tech period, and then the previews, if it's many previews, which I like, because then I love the editing part. I love the refining and keeping up with the director's changes, and also then doing my notes at the same time, and getting it really honed down. And again, it's part of the layer process. That answer that?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes. No, thank you. Thank you. I know that. And I often, and that my process usually is we have a crew watch the night before. It's usually Friday night, the night before our tech starts. So I usually go in Friday night, and I light over the crew watch. So the next day when I go in, I have the foundation ready.
Right, exactly. Other ways to do it, some people do you know, paper techs.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done them, and I like them for complicated shows. Sometimes I'll do a cue list ahead of time and assign numbers, so I don't have to think about it in the moment. I can just make the cues. Again, it's, you know, I don't have hard and fast rules, and it depends on the show itself and the production team. Some stage managers really want to do, you know, dry text and have things in their book ahead of time, and you know, great. So I don't usually do that, but if they want to do that, of course I'm there to do that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Jim. I just want to, maybe the last few minutes, I want to open up to the floor and everybody, if you have any questions for Jim. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
I do.
Julian.
I just wanted to ask, how have you felt with theater in terms of lighting adapt over your time working in lighting? How did you feel when everything kind of just like changed from incandescent bulbs to just LEDs. How do you feel about that? And like, how did your experience with it transitioning? Like, what did you do?
Yeah, great. First of all, the biggest technological change for me was which you guys don't know about because you didn't have the pre thing, was the development of the computer light board. When Theron Musser said to, I guess, Strand Lighting that she wanted a board that acted like a piano board, and that was the invention of tracking, the world changed. And it's the best thing ever. So for me, that's the amazing technological advancement that I'm thankful for every day, because it's reliable. You can get more, the design can be much more complicated because it can be reproduced. It's not 6 guys on road boards. But then we come to LEDs. I think they're incredible. The luster is going to be, in the next generation especially, but even now, it's just thrilling to be able to hang 1 light instead of 4. What I do find is that it takes a little, there's a little more, it doesn't let you off the hook in decision making. And if you think it does, you're going to get in trouble. I was at Spoleto Festival, and one of the electricians from University of Michigan said, we were talking one day, and he said, I did a show with all LEDs, and I went in, I hadn't thought about the colors, and there were so many choices, I didn't know what to choose. So what I do to solve that is I pretend they're not LEDs. And I say, okay, this one's going to be Lee 161, and this one's going to be, Lee 212 or whatever, and start there. So that, and so I pick my colors anyway, because otherwise you're gonna mire in the luxury of choice. So that's what I do. The thing I don't like so much about it is the brightness and all from front of house is still, being developed. Okay. But the color temperature is, I wish there was a good Lee 201, and I wish there was a good clear, it's just a little too acidic for me, but it's getting better. And, I'm very happy to use them. At the Opera House in Lyon, France, they did have on the balcony rail, they had, I think, 8, and they were incredibly helpful for color washes and things. So yeah, I'm a big fan. And also, the ecology of it, they're expensive to buy, but they pay for themselves very quickly. The challenge is to convince the managers that are spending the money to do it, because I'm sure within 2 years, the electricity saved, the bulbs saved, the gel saved, the labor of all that, of replacing, that's major. And of course, they never think that way. They don't, or few people do. A big investment now will pay off later. But yeah, it's huge. It's major. The heat, no heat. Great. It's great.
Rubicella, I think you had a question.
I did. Hello.
Hi.
What kind of classes do you recommend for taking that will help with lighting? I know you took, you did classes for scenic and stage managing and everything else, but what would you recommend classes that are like out of the theater, like computer science or anything else sort of technical to help with this sort of profession?
Anything, yes. I would not exclude anything. I don't know how to, code and stuff like that. I don't know that would be helpful. I know how to use the light board. Like I know how to, and I have my style of saying as few words as possible to the board operator. On the hand, if you were interested in that, I would say do it, because it could only be helpful in terms of understanding, the deeper technology of these things. If you were, for instance, going to, be involved in that, or work for a company that that made boards and stuff. That could come in handy. More helpful as a designer, I think, would be any visual enhancement. Like an art class, art history, music appreciation, or actual art, painting or sculpting, or anything like that. Anything to increase your visual vocabulary. I recommend, if you probably have, now there's a lot of virtual museums online. I would say, wander in them for, on an afternoon. Anything to keep your visual vocabulary perking. And then when you're, and that's my kind of research, so that when I'm doing some show, I might think of that sunset that I saw last week. Or, right now here in the Northeast, in upstate New York, there's, the fall, the colors are unbelievable daily, So, I mean, there's been some oranges that I want to use next show. So that kind of thing is helpful. Yeah, music is great. Anything that, gets you into the literature of music, opera, great. Yeah.
Okay.
At this point, don't limit yourselves. Do anything you're interested in is useful. It all adds up eventually.
Right. Any other questions?
I have one.
Okay, Larry.
Hi.
Hi, Larry.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
A question I have, and maybe it's not relevant. I don't know if you show up to a lot of the shows or you hear a lot of the stories. What's like a horror story you've heard after many years of working shows? We had a show at Christmas Carol, and all of our dimmers, all of them just decided to blow up. So that was fun. So I just wanted to, I just wanted to hear something that you've heard. You probably heard a few dozens of instances, but what's one that like stands out to you?
Disasters we have loved. Well, one I was involved in actually was similar. I was on tour with Twyla in Galveston, and we were at the Performing Arts Center in Galveston. This is, 1978 or 9, and we're Sarah Rudner is dancing. She's doing the opening solo to a dance called Country Dances, and suddenly I hear this, and then I hear another. And I look into the wing, and there's sparks coming out of the dimmer board, and then I notice that the third and fourth electrics have just gone out, and suddenly Sarah, whose mid stage is dark, and so I'm trying to, I'm in the wing going, move down stage, and that was followed by a fire. And I don't remember much after that. So that was one. Wow. I'm going to be at a loss for. I think I blocked them, Larry. I'll try and remember.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. There's some pretty, always want to blank them out from my memory too. Just scarring sometimes.
It is, and it's funny, but it's also a good point to be made, is that, what we do can be dangerous, and any efforts to make it safe and to remember, because we're working long hours, we're tired. I do remember at the Seattle Rep once, it was a 10 out of 12 and it was late, and there was this gag where an actor ran up the stairs, and then the release on the stairs collapsing the stair with him at the top. And they did it one more time, and the thing was pulled too soon. And luckily he wasn't hurt, but that's what, he fell to the floor. And, so that was horrible because, he could have been really hurt. Luckily he wasn't, but those kind of things, genies, I mean, all that, I'm the most unhappy when, we have to bring the genie down and move the legs and move it over and then bring the genie up as opposed, but, I don't want the guy going over in the lift.
Right.
Yeah. I did see that once.
Mhm.
So you don't want that. So, yeah, that's the point.
I mean, the cool thing is, every time someone doesn't get hurt, you just have a funny story.
Well, after, but hopefully there, let's hope it all works out well, and then we can laugh.
Right.
Yeah, but let's not have it happen.
Right. Any other questions? Any?
I see in the chat that Christina sent a note about Twyla's book
Yes.
about creativity, creative habit, learn to use in life. It's great, and she has a couple of other books too. Her book about the downtown dance scene in New York in the 70s is called "When Push Comes to Shove," which was the name of a piece she did with Marisha Baryshnikov.
Oh,
And that's a great book too.
great. Yeah, Christina is choreographer. She's a dancer.
Yes, I remember that.
So, yes. Well, last chance. Anybody have any questions?
I have one more.
Okay.
Yes,
Yes.
we saw it.
How are you adapting to like the new normal with the whole lighting and stuff like that? Because like for us, for sound, you can do on the radio, and costumes you can visually show. But how are you adapting with lighting, recordings and stuff like that?
I was in Galway, Ireland, doing a cherry orchard with the wonderful Druid Theatre Company. If you look on their website, they're a wonderful group, DRUID. And the artistic director and co-founder, Gary Hines, is a wonderful director. She's great. And the actors are fierce and racehorses. They're terrific. And there's a certain Irish sparseness in their work that's just great. And the designer, set and costume designer, Francis O'Connor, is fantastic. Anyway, I was there and we opened on March 4th. And I came home on March 5th. And the next week I watched all of my shows through now canceled. It was like a slow motion car crash, of course. And so, so the first possible show that I have is next March with the Pacific Northwest Ballet, a ballet, but I doubt that can happen. And then the one after that is the show with Peter Sellers at the Châtelet, Théâtre du Châtelet in Paris. It's called Perle Noire. It's a song cycle of Josephine Baker songs with the incredible soprano Julia Bullock. So, that's how I am. I'm not, I'm not doing any projects. And that's not great, but it's what I have to do. I have to just keep my, if we're not, theater people are good at being in the moment, and this is our moment, and it's a hell of a moment, and I don't like it. But, this is what else am I going to do? So I'm trying to be upbeat about it. But yeah, I have no work. So it's luckily I'm in a position where, I will survive and it will be okay. But it's difficult right now. But it could be worse. So I'm I really believe my job is to stay well and to stay upbeat. And I know it'll return. It might not be until we get a vaccine in any big way, and then if we solve the problem of distribution, and who gets it and how much it is and all that, which we don't seem to be very good at right now, any of that. So if I might, could I just say, those of you who can, please register, and those of you, please vote.
Right.
I didn't know I was going, but
it's I guess a lot of us on the same boat. I had about three projects. Well, I mean, all the shows that are was supposed to happen back in May and March was all canceled, and I had um, shows that are supposed to happen February, March, and May. Well, May one, I don't know.
Yeah, it could be, and
Yeah.
Paris, Europe is maybe easier, although the numbers in Paris are going up right now. They're having a spike, so
Mm.
I don't know.
Right.
But the theater is open now. They did a show tonight. I think they're doing a show for 3 days, a small one.
Mhm.
You know, I had a ballet in Finland that was canceled because it was too big. It was Giselle. But Finland has been doing quite well, and they did something small instead, like duets and solos. That A, were cheaper, B, were less involving of dancers together, and therefore less expensive, so they could have audience, a smaller audience, and still not be financially irresponsible. But again, European theaters are so much more heavily funded from the government than American theaters. So that there's a lot more resource there. I mean, it's less than it used to be, and they're having more and more troubles. But there's more activity there. Ken Billington just did Sleepless, the new musical in London, I think in August, because they have certain quick testing there, and so they did it. There was a big article in the New York Times about the work in London. But the good, not the good side, but a useful thing to do is I've been trying to use the time. So I'm reading more. I'm trying to read those things that I've never read. I'm trying to do more research online, and so I'm trying to keep up. I'm trying to keep in touch with my friends a lot, because the greatest thing about this business and my life in this business is the connections and the people I know, and I miss them all. We went recently to a museum near here called the Magazzino Museum. It's a private museum of Italian art, and they had protocols and limited people, and and it was thrilling just to be in an art space. Just beautiful. It was a visceral experience to be in a room that is dedicated, in a building with 8 huge galleries dedicated to art, and by ourselves, basically. They only allowed like 10 people at a time. So there are things like that I'm trying to do. As I told to Hide as we were starting, we saw that production of Godspell that was done, the first equity approved production in August. So, and again, thrilling to be in the 3D experience. I mean, if anything, this has taught me that I totally love what I do and don't want to stop doing it. So I'm hopeful that we will get there. It's just going to be, and for you guys, you do have the chance to create these things. I mean, you as teams, and I guess you are, right? You're converting to production online.
Production and stuff, yes.
And that's an opportunity. I mean, maybe you guys will like doing the video experience, and it's just another thing to increase, your vocabulary,
right,
and your skills, but yeah, I'm not happy about it.
I know nobody is. It's
right.
Everybody's, yeah, just. Now,
our classes, are you all not on campus?
Most of classes are online. We did have to do some work, like we're just about to do Christmas Carol, but local NPR is going to be airing it. So we just distributed microphones, so we had to go in a couple of days to do that. But we're keeping our trip to campus and exposure to minimum, and we just had a bit of a conversation yesterday how we should I guess work and operate the next about a 2 month or so, and my inclination is that we should just sort of take the safe road and sort of stay put. Yeah.
That, I know it's a big issue, and that would be my my personal opinion.
Mhm.
I don't, I think there are things that can be done safely, and then, the mistake, I think, is if things are done and they're not safe. That's that's obviously the problem, the issue. Now, can I just ask what of you all who are like studying what?
Okay, so do you want to do, I hope Zoom don't just cut us off, but do you want to just, if you don't feel comfortable turning on the camera, that's okay, but do you want to just go through, actually, let's do this, because I know who's who, so I'll point you, I'll call your name, you could just talk, tell you who you are, what you're studying. So let's start with Julian.
I'm Julian, and I'm studying lighting in the theater.
What year?
I'm a freshman, so this is my first year in college.
Great. Welcome to the biz.
And Ian?
Hello. I'm studying sound design, and this is my last year.
Okay.
Sarah?
Hi, I'm studying theater education.
Fantastic.
Rubicella?
Hello, I'm a theater major. My main focus is in sound.
Sound great.
Victor?
I'm a BFA student in technical design with a focus in lighting, and I am a senior.
Great.
Cassie?
Hi, I'm Cassie. I am a BFA in stage management, and I'm a senior.
Great.
Okay.
How are your prop plots?
I'm sorry, what?
I said, how are the prop plots coming along?
Not that I would know what that is. I haven't done one actually.
Oh, well, when you do, it's a list of props and where they enter, and what.
Oh, okay,
what
yes. I haven't done one currently because we're not working on stage, but
Yeah.
yes, yes,
Maybe a scene breakdown.
yes. That'll be coming up soon, hopefully in the spring, because that'll be my next show assignment.
Great. Okay. Good luck.
Thank you.
Carolyn? Your mic is
unmute.
on.
I just popped on because my daughter just sent me the link, and so I am taking an Ollie theater class. I'm doing playwright with Dr. Greg Thompson at UTEP. It's been real fun, and I've written a play. So I didn't know what this content was going to be, and I love it. It's up my alley. So thank you, Lily.
Okay, very good.
Fantastic.
Larry?
Hi, did you call me?
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about yourself and your year, and what you're studying.
It's the BFA in theater. Hopefully you got a good look at my face. I'm not turning back the camera on.
Is there a specialty?
But BFA in theater, it's a little bit of lighting.
Lighting. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
And Lily?
Hi, my major is chemistry, and I just saw the ad for this on the UTEP Theater and Dance page on Instagram. So I just hopped in to see what it was all about, because
Okay.
I like the art.
Oh, great. Was it helpful or interesting?
Yeah, it's interesting. I missed like the middle, but I like the idea of lighting the moment. I'm gonna try to do that. I do like fashion photography on the side, so I need
Okay.
help. This is helpful.
Yeah, so you really need to know how the light works for your photography.
Yeah, so it was pretty interesting listening to you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Do you know the work of Richard? I'm going to forget. Annie Leibovitz.
That kind of cut out. Could you repeat?
Oh, there's wonderful photographer Annie Leibovitz, whose work you should check out.
Okay, Thank you. How do you spell the last name?
Liebo.
Oh, okay. I got it.
Okay. And
Thank
then,
you.
and then Richard Avedon from the 70s.
Very good. And we had handful more, but I think um, they
Oh,
lost
I've seen his work, like
Great.
in the museum before.
Yeah, great.
He's good.
Yeah. Fantastic, everybody.
Okay. All right.
Thanks for all this. And, keep the faith.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. And thank you so much, Jim, for your time. And you just been wonderful, mentor to me. And I just can't thank you enough for everything.
You're very welcome. And please, if anybody has any, thoughts and stuff, just Hide has my email, and just send them along. I'll get back to you eventually. It may take a couple days, but feel free.
Okay.
A pleasure, everybody.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good weekend.
You.
Thank you so much.
You too. Bye.
Bye.